I thought it was real important for you to understand that the most important thing on the lawnmower is the blades. That's what cuts the grass. And so when he taught me all of these cool things about today, I'm up here in Novi, Michigan at the LAL, Entrepreneur Academy Live Conference. And I'm outside right now with my man, Gerd Bauer from Magna-Matic. What's going on, Gerd? How are you, bro?
Very well.
Nice to meet you. So he has a blade cleaner, 2 blade sharpeners, and a hedge trimmer sharpener that we're going to show you today. So what do we have here, Gerd?
So we'll kind of start at the beginning of, you could say, the process of servicing a mower blade. We'll kind of walk you through what you guys should be looking for when you're doing it, regardless what equipment you're using, because we can do these things with a various number of tools, right? So we make a blade cleaner with 2 big gangs of brushes so you can clean both the top and the bottom of the blade at the same time. And you would put in half of the blade, turn it around, do the other half. And cleaning the blade is important because and any part you service, the first step is clean the oil off, clean the dirt off. You can't inspect the part to make a judgment if it's good or not if you can't see under the dirt, right? So why for more blades? Checking for any fractures or cracks. The next thing is for getting an accurate balance. So once you would clean a blade, the next step would be to place the blade on the balancer. The cone locates the center. We pull the magnet forward, and this rod here, the next step after after cleaning it would be to check the straightness, because those are the 2 qualifiers if the blade is worth keeping. So we would check one tip to the other, because the tip is what's important, and these 2 tips are tracking in the same plane or the blade is straight. And so now we've qualified that there are no fractures, the blade is straight, we can move on to sharpening. The 8200 is kind of a unique product in that we built a chassis that can be a whole bunch of different models. This chassis can be a grinding wheel, it can be a belt grinder, it can be water cooled, it can be dry, it can use a couple different sizes of grinding wheels depending on the style of blades. So a lot of different options, as well as doing mulching blades and different angles. But this one is set up for 30 degrees, straight blades only, and it's the 2-inch wide belt grinder. And we can open that up for you so you can see inside. And what's so helpful about such a big wide belt is that it makes it easier to get a nice pointed tip on the blade, because that is your cutting tooth. And when you're looking and making a judgment on a blade, whether it's sharp or dull, and we'll give you a quick little run through on that. Here we've got a blade. People commonly look at this body, this shape. And when I asked you, what shape did you say this was?
Your boy said it was a rectangle. What does it look like to you? Tell us down in the comments.
This is a circle. You have to think of this part when it's dynamically being used, when it's rotating, because these tips are at a diameter. A mower blade doesn't have a length, it has a diameter. You measure it from tip to tip because it's a diameter. Think of a lawnmower blade more like a circular saw blade rather than a sword or a knife. It's cutting with momentum at the tip. That's why tip speed is so important for your cutting volume. Okay, and that's why mower manufacturers brag about tip speed, because it's the volume or acres per hour that you can cut. So when a tip becomes rounded, that's the judgment of a dull blade. Okay, it is not the kitchen knife test of brushing your thumb on it. It is, will I get a puncture from this pointed corner? This is your tooth. Think of it as a tooth like a circular saw blade or an end mill or many other tools. Even lathe tools are similar, that it is the tip cutting at momentum.
The tip, this part here, it is the tip.
And if we don't have that, if that's rounded, you're tearing. Even worse, if you let a blade get really bad where this becomes really a big radius, your blade is now shorter. You don't have the overlap, and now when the blades are going by, you're gonna get stragglers, mohawking, all this double cutting problems, and it's all because you didn't service the blade properly. So whatever method you're using, work towards that pointed corner and you will get a blade that cuts rather than tears.
One of the things that's on this blade you showed me when we were down at Equip Expo was how long do these blades last? When should you get rid of the blade?
Yep, that's a super common question. So I have a little kind of mark drawn on here. Basically, if you look at the underside of a blade and you look at where the tip is and then where about the lift bend begins, that's the resharpenable width of any blade. So theoretically, if you think about it, if you have, let's say, a 3-inch wide blade and it's got a really low lift, you're gonna get more resharpenable material. High lift blades are going to have a shorter life. You have less material because they bend more of the blade up to get that
And
pointed.
we're talking about this part here. So
Yep. People call it the lift or the sail or airfoil, commonly called the lift because it is also what lifts the grass and helps the discharge of the cut grass. When you look at that, and basically if we would grind back, I made a little mark here with a marker, if we would grind all the way back into this lift, you know, our edge would actually kind of be sweeping, right? So we need so much of this to be relatively horizontal. And that is why, you know, looking at these surfaces and understanding that this surface, and this surface come together to make our point. And if we don't have one of those surfaces, which is the flat underside we'll run out of, that's when the blade's at the end of its life.
Man, this is exactly why I came out here to do this video with Gerd, is because when I was at Equip Expo, he gave me like a masterclass when it comes to blade sharpening in 10 minutes, right? I personally right now use the RBG 712, but we're gonna be upgrading to a Magna-Matic in the spring. But I thought it was real important for you to understand that the most important thing on the lawnmower is the blades. That's what cuts the grass. And so when he taught me all of these cool things about the blade being a circle and not a rectangle or a triangle or a square, I was blown away. And he really just sold the product to me right then and there. So now we're going to look at this next blade sharpener.
So yeah, so this is basically the dry version, and then here now is the water-cooled version. You can see we've got this big catch tray and a tank with a pump, and you'd ask yourself, well, why would I ever want a water-cooled blade sharpener? Well, heat in grinding is the greatest enemy we have. It breaks down the abrasive. We can potentially damage the temper of the blade by burning it, as well as there's dust. Water cooling takes care of all those things. Because the grinding is getting flooded, you don't have any dust. When you're grinding and pushing hard to really hog a lot of steel off, it's cooling it so you can push harder and cut faster, as well as the abrasive lasts longer because again, heat's not breaking it down. So you just get a lot of advantages, but now there is an oil water mixture coolant that does need to be maintained. So you get another level of something you have to pay attention to at the machine, but you get a lot of benefits from it. Whereas the dry ones are a little bit more straightforward. You don't have the coolant to maintain.
One thing I wanted to ask you was, I see you got hoses going out of this tank. There's a hose going to this tank and that tank. Can you buy the unit just this, or does it come with this whole thing? How does that work?
Workstation, yeah, whatever we want to call it. So the black boxes that you see on these are dry dust collectors. They've got filters, kind of like a furnace filter, and that filters the air, capturing all the fine dust, so you're not breathing that. Yes, we've designed everything to be totally modular and be able to grow with somebody's business. The whole idea of this chassis being able to be like a belt, a wheel, so on and so forth, is so that somebody could buy just the benchtop machine like this, put it on a bench, start with a grinding wheel, which will be a lower cost unit, and then as their business grows, they want more performance, they can get the belt grinding kit and turn it into a belt grinder. Then let's say they move into another shop, they want a cleaner shop, get the stand and the dust collector, you know, so on and so forth. You can build it out and customize essentially any of these workstations, and we've designed them that way so that instead of us coming up with a product and saying, this is just the best thing you should have, we made it where, what's the best thing for your business, rather than just a manufacturer telling you, well, this is the coolest thing we think we could make. We made kind of every possible way you could sharpen a lawnmower blade and let the user choose what they prefer based on their application.
I love that, man, because what do I always say? Your win is your win. Only you get to decide. So you might think that, I need to have this big thing. You can work your way up to that. Buy what you can use right now that's going to serve you, because you are the one that matters, not everybody else. So that's why we're showing you these things.
Yep.
Agree to that.
That's fire. He said he would agree to that. My man.
I start landscaping business from not owning a shop. Now we have a $40,000 of equipment in the storage.
Wow, that's fire.
Yep.
That's fire. So we went from
So the blade cleaner.
the first version for dry stuff.
Yep.
Then we have the water cooled version. Before we move on to this last thing, what is the importance of making sure your blades are balanced? Because I know I personally, your boy, has never balanced the blade, right? But I had a great conversation with Gerd last night about the importance of sharpening blades, and now you get to hear it. Let's go.
Right? It's just like everything. You're leaving money on the table. Balancing any rotary part that you interact with in your whole life, bearings, wheels, pulleys, impellers, all kinds of stuff. There are many, many rotating. If you think about how many bearings are in your life, you have so many rotating parts that you interact with, and they all have to be balanced. And they are by the manufacturer. The unique thing about a lawnmower blade is lawnmower blades are cutting a material that's never evenly dense or evenly distributed. So the wear isn't even. So now balance is changing where, you know, your tires and other things and pulleys are wearing evenly all the time, and they're not being introduced to like rocks and driving into curbs and other things like that, right? So a mower blade's unique that its balance needs to be checked up frequently if you want the most performance out of the mower. So the cone locates the center point. Because this is a rotary part, we have to measure from the center. This one happens to have a star. The points of the star are concentric, so they still locate on the cone. This is a magnetic chuck that slides. So we slide this forward. And you can see this takes some effort for me to move this. If you've seen some of the Chinese imitations, their magnets are very sloppy back and forth, and they're not machined concentric. So if you ever actually, if you have one of those, you can do a little test. Put a blade on it, get a balance reading, take the blade off, turn it 90 degrees, put the blade back on. You'll often get a different reading because the machining is not concentric through that tool. It just basically doesn't work. It looks like ours, but doesn't function. So we put the blade on the cone. I'm pulling the magnet forward. That holds it there. Balance is kind of, it's a weight distribution. So we're talking about this halve's weight to this half, right? Mm-hmm. And now you can see gravity is pulling the heavy end down, and this is a brand new blade, and it moved pretty quick. You get all your information in a quarter turn. We can already tell this blade is bad, and we'd want to correct this. And then the way to correct it, since we talked about before, in the process we were talking about, let's say we had done this blade, we had made a nice tip, we ground it. We don't want to grind any more than we have to at this tip. We're losing material here from sharpening, or excuse me, from mowing, right? This is getting rounded from mowing. Then we have to sharpen it. We're losing material here. We talked about this width and this distance being the life of the blade. So I want you guys to understand that I want you to grind as little as possible here to extend the life of this part that you spent hard-earned money on. And you want the highest quality cutting over its whole life. So if you're sharpening between 8 to 12 mowing hours, that'll be the smallest radius. It'll be easier sharpening. You'll get your tip back, and you'll be cutting the lawn all the time rather than tearing it. Then when it comes to balance correction, we recommend to do it on the interior of the cutting edge, because here you have material to spare. You have meat to spare here rather than grinding it out here and shortening the life of the blade for nothing. And back to your question of like, why balance? Again, I said kind of it's leaving money on the table. Every race car, anything high performance, is balanced to the nth degree to get the most fuel efficiency, the most power out of that engine. When you have an out of balance blade, that's additional load hammering that spindle. And even though your spindles might be huge and you've never had a spindle problem, and it might not be a preventative maintenance issue for you, you're still leaving performance on the table. A amount of that engine's horsepower is being consumed to drive that extra vibratory load. When we talked last night, I used the example of if you had a really heavy guy, let's say a 400-pound body on a mower and a 200-pound body on a mower. That other one is going to use more fuel because it has to burn more energy to do the same work, okay? You're burning off performance that could otherwise be put into your forward cutting speed. So that is why balancing is important. And I get calls all the time that if someone has never been balancing and not getting tips on the blade, and they go to moving to our equipment and they've got a properly sharpened blade and a properly balanced blade, they oftentimes get almost 20 to 25% fuel efficiency plus a faster forward cutting speed out of that. So it's just raw data in that if you make that engine work less, you will get more out of it.
That's awesome. And when he says, if someone, I'm someone, your boy has never balanced blades, but we gonna get to it. We gotta get them tips right. Let's go. We got one more thing that you guys created and invented.
Yep, this is brand new for this year. It is a hedge trimmer sharpener. So here, and this blade's been chewed on a lot in demos, but we designed a specialized belt grinder. You can see the top open here, that allows you to make it very fast and easy to sharpen hedge trimmer blades. So the top opens up so that you can deburr the underside of the blade. Of course, while the unit would be running, you can then flatten everything out before you sharpen and also post sharpening. Then these fences in the front, we'll close this up, and the belt grinder goes down under here. And these fences we have set already, and they can be adjusted to different brands, but they allow us to bump up against, grind, bump up against, grind, and you index and you get a perfect 45-degree edge, chisel edge on every single tooth. And it's nearly impossible to screw up because the table is so nice and flat, everything is square, it's lined up properly, that all you have to do is touch off the blade a couple seconds on each one, and you're getting back to factory sharpness on your hedge trimmer blades.
Wow, that is fire. Man, listen, this is not sponsored. Like I said, I met Gerd down at Equip Expo and was completely blown away. Didn't have an opportunity to get a video done there. It was chaotic as hell down there. But now we're here, we're outside, and I just wanted you to see these, man. But Gerd, if someone is interested in getting a Magna-Matic, where can they purchase them?
Head over to Magna-Matic.com. We're a third-generation family company. My grandfather invented the balancer back in the 50s. My dad, who was from Germany, started designing sharpeners in the late 80s, and my brother and I have continued to expand the product line and improve upon it. So again, you're buying factory direct. We actually make all this stuff in Wisconsin. We source as much as we possibly can from the US. Hardly anything of the product is made outside of the country. Most of all the steel and everything else even comes from within Wisconsin. So it's a truly American-made product, 2-year warranty, and you buy directly from us so that you're getting the customer support experience directly from us. So you have a question, you call us up, you're most likely gonna get me or my brother, who's the primary engineer, on the phone, or someone that is gonna be able to answer your questions. And we pump out a lot of videos to really give that education, because we want the education so that you understand what you're looking for, right? If you guys understand what you need out of that blade and why it's important, it will be obvious to see why we designed things the way we did.
I love it, man. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you,
Make sure
sir.
you go check out Magna-Matic. Go follow on Instagram and the other social medias. And if you feel like you got good value from this video, if you feel like you know a little more about sharpening blades, do me a favor. Like, comment, and subscribe below. And as always, I love you. I appreciate you. I wish you nothing but success. And remember, the Creator created you to be creative. So get out there and create whatever you want in your life, because you deserve it. Me and Gerd, we out. Peace.